Hello and welcome to the Cannabis Show, a show where we discuss topics surrounding our amazing friend and healer, the cannabis plant. And today I want to talk about weed in general and why people usually have a great misunderstanding of what weed can actually provide in terms of it being actual medicine. Let's start about actually going deep into some misconceptions that people have about cannabis. So usually I usually categorize weed, people that criticize weed, or like arguments that people use to criticize weed into two sections. The first section is the actual things that we can solve, since um, since I will get deep into them later. First, I would like to talk to another group that some harms that weed actually causes are so minor that you really need to understand and really need to perceive and think about the actual harms that any type of drug or any type of food causes. We can talk about food as also being somewhat harmful, like it's essential to human life, but some food with some types of food which are really high in sugar are harmful, but not a lot of people talk about it. No, not a lot of people mention it. But like comparing weed to food is not something that really connects in any kind of way. So I like to compare it to maybe basically if it's not the brother of cannabis, but it's basically the cousin of cannabis, which is actually coffee, which is so like accepted all around the world that we don't even think about it. Like many people do recognize that children shouldn't drink coffee, but it's the furthest people usually go in terms of criticizing coffee. But basically cannabis and coffee are the same thing. Not like the plants are not related in any way, but in the harms that each of those drugs produces, they are the same. If you drink a lot of coffee, like for example, I would say it subjectively that if I drink a lot of coffee, I will get a pretty great anxiety, which is not good in any type of situation. Since why would you want to get anxiety even if you want to work? So the same thing comes with cannabis. It's a minor harm that, yes, if you consume a lot of cannabis, certain ill effects can be, you can get certain types of anxiety, or you can just be unfunctional for several hours. But also that those effects empirically, people have proven that those effects do not last. They last till the high wears off. And basically, if you get really high, you usually, when the effects wear off, you can function perfectly and you don't have any type of hangover. But that what is concerning the minor harms of marijuana. And if we think about marijuana as just being those minor harms, we can easily associate that with everything that we have already accepted in society, which is like coffee and other types of foods, which are accepted in society. So in terms of that, weed is non-harmful. Weed is harmless if you think about it. But then there is harms that people cite which can be solved in a certain way. Let me explain. So governments usually demonize weed for all the wrong reasons, but some of their reasoning has become true just because weed is illegal. Usually people cite high THC levels in modern weed as a big issue, since THC can cause psychosis. I haven't seen any particular studies that like confirm that THC 100% causes psychosis, but high levels of THC impact people in bad ways. Like if you are really high on if the levels are really high of THC, you can get pretty bad anxiety. It's not something you want to get. But the high levels of THC are a result of demonizing and the illegal status of weed. The growers had to breed the cannabis plant to a certain level so it became a much stronger drug. But when the legalization comes, where people usually realize that the harms of weed are really exaggerated, we solve the problem of high THC levels, since now when the growers have any type of restrictions in terms, when they do not have any type of actual goal of getting really high THC levels, they can produce all varieties and all kinds of strains which can have low THC levels, which can be totally medicinal and have high CBD levels, which is even better than sometimes you don't want to just get high, you just want to get that stress relieving effect of weed. And that's when I go to a topic of basic society. Usually people who smoke weed in their teens, they usually do it at parties, and there is one guy with weed and he brings a gram and everybody smokes it, and people get high, and that's all the connection that usually teens have with weed. But some people have it as a lifestyle. Some people enjoy it so much, the effect or the basic, actually the how weed impacts them, that they have it as a lifestyle. And usually it doesn't mean that people want to get high every day of their lives. Sometimes what you want to just have is the stress relieving part, not the high part. And that's where different kinds of cannabis come into play, since sometimes you just want some good old CBD rich vape, which just relieves your stress and gets your ass working. We cannot compare cannabis, but just by its harms, to really harmful and addictive drugs like heroin or cocaine, because the harms of weed are extremely exaggerated. They do exist, but they can all be solved, or they're amazingly minor. And then we get to the part of all the positive things weed has done. We have seen certain improvements in children suffering from seizures being treated with cannabis like instantaneously, which is something really amazing. And if you look deep into the research and point out all the beneficial and harmful parts of cannabis, you can really easily understand that all the propaganda and all the bullshit that was really brainwashed into the people's heads for long time, for all the time that weed was illegal in the States and in Canada and basically in the whole world, and it still is. But that propaganda is not supported by any way by the science community, by the research. And understanding that can maybe not turn you into consuming cannabis. You might still prefer other types of stimulants like previously mentioned coffee, but you can stop demonizing the cannabis community and the people who enjoy it as their stimulant, as their way from getting out of depression, or maybe just as their medicine, as the real medicine. In the case of people that have real ailments, or that people that are ill and they use cannabis as medication, there is no way, no moral no moral, any kind of moral reason not to support them in the usage if the cannabis really helps them. And all this research and all of those arguments boil down to the basic right of any individual to choose their way of basically their way of life, but also to really evaluate the effects that any kind of drug or any kind of stimulant has on their lives. Drug addicts usually understand perfectly that they are addicted to drug. They might not recognize it immediately, but when the harmful parts emerge, and when they do understand that this drug is getting them into the worst conditions, they want to get out of it. But due to like really high levels of addiction from substances like cocaine or heroin, they have like tremendously difficult time getting off that kind of substance. But when it comes to weed, if the effects make you a better person, or make you more positive, like in my case, then there is no medical reason not to consume it, since the addiction that it causes can be compared to addiction such as sugar. For example, if you sometimes want to get that, you want to fulfill your guilty pleasure of getting that sugary sweet, you usually do it and you do not think that deeply about it. But when it comes to cannabis, all the negative stigma, which is not supported by science in any way, has led to many people viewing it as something dangerous, which is not true. And anyway, this is the first episode. I would like to recognize that it's not perfect in any way. It will be probably the pilot episode, but the format will remain the same throughout all of the episodes. If you still watching, that is certainly a success, since you understand that it has been 10 minutes of continuous cannabis talk. And yeah, if you're really interested in this topic, be sure to share your ideas for the next episodes in the comments below. Thank you for watching. Certainly thank you for staying with me and listening to my arguments, and hope to see you in my new videos, and subscribe.